Oh, good. We have Liz coming in too. Hello, everybody. We are happy that you are joining us today for our series called Lunch and Learn. This has really been going on for a long time, and we've been Zooming on this event since COVID. And it's enabled us to get people from a variety of backgrounds to participate. And we usually lead off with league announcements. And so I did put one in the chat. And I see some previous presenters here, which is great. We are studying the 1619 project. This is not a book I would read at bedtime because it's really serious and I already have sleep issues. But we will be meeting and the link is in the chat. And I highly recommend that you join us on Friday at 9:30. And what's interesting is I have two events that are just perfect to go to. We also have Jay English, who shared his wisdom with us a couple of weeks ago. And Barb Tolles invited Jay English to share his wisdom with our retirees of AFT Local 212, the MATC union. So anyway, this is the book. I hope you start looking at the book. It is a really thick book. And Mary wisely put it on her Kindle. So if there's any other league announcements or upcoming events that people would like to announce, I see Gloria Pitchford Nicholas is here. And I will announce to you that she is going to be the next presenter. And we look forward to hearing Gloria bring us up to speed. And all that information will be sent to you. I do keep track of who's available and who shows up. And so, Mary Sussman, I just put in the announcement about League Cafe on Friday. Would you like to unmute and build on that?
Well, we're going through the book kind of slowly and carefully. And on Friday, we'll be discussing chapters 3 through 5. And then we'll bite off another little chunk for our next meeting. And that's how that is going. I heard Pat reference the Jay English talk. I see a number of people who were there for that talk. We do have that link on our website. I can put that in the chat too if anyone is interested in accessing that. So I don't have too much to add. I think Pat really kind of detailed everything. So.
Mary, just one quick question. Are we using the same Google Meet link that we used in February?
No, it is a different one.
I'm going to take this one down.
All right. While we're getting started here, I don't want to take up a lot of time because this is another event, but I'll put in the Jay English link and I'll put in the link we are using for the 1619 project discussions. And that'll be Friday at 9:30 a.m. So I'll put that in chat, which you can check out if you're interested.
Okay, good. Okay, great. Let me introduce Mary and Althea, and we are very happy that you are willing to share your wisdom with us. And so let me just tell you a little bit about the work they've been doing in dismantling racism. And one of the quotes I read is, everything I've read, articles, books about diversity training, weekend retreats, one-day workshops, white people are awakened to the lives of Black people. Awakened, yes, which is good, but truly transformed? Are we changed? Change takes time. Facing racism, one white woman at a time, tries to give women the chance to change over time. And in their program, they make time for 9 months of work. So I'm very eager to hear how things are going and what motivated you. Althea, I don't think I gave you a warning, but I did warn Mary that often on these lunch and learns, I will ask people to tell me what was your movement birthday. So you could introduce yourself, both Mary and Althea. Mary will start off so Althea can think about what she wants to say about that. Thank you, friends. We're so glad you're here. Mary?
Oh, okay, thank you. I did share with you when you said your movement date. I guess I'd never heard of that expression that way. Well, the movement date for what we're going to explain to you today, that was 2019. And it was the first 3 months of 2019, and I was in chemo. And I asked God to please not have these days be for naught. And so out of that came this program that we're going to talk about, the 9 months.
Thank you.
One more, I mean, before that, 2017, I joined the league. And I joined the high school group. So we went into about 8 or 9 MPS high schools registering kids.
Thank you, Mary. Althea, what if somebody said, what's your movement birthday, Althea? Do you have a response that makes sense to you?
Does movement mean like justice work, or what does
Yes.
movement mean?
Yeah.
It
I
does.
love dancing, but I'm on this one, I'm talking about social justice.
Okay. Movement. Maybe when it's hard to answer. There's never been a time in my life when I wasn't aware of the need for justice. I grew up in a household that talked a lot about a lot of things. Maybe one time when I think I was first awakened was back in high school, and I took a history class, an American history class, and I had grown up with, there was a magazine called Ebony Junior back in the day, and it was for kids, and it was, around, everything was Black centered. So there was history, there was arts, there was crafts, etc. And I got that every month. It was so exciting. And so and the conversations in my family had always been about just the world as it truly is. And I remember taking the class in high school. I shudder now at my child's self, and I remember coming home to my mother, and I was like, Mom, you pay taxes, and you need to understand that this is not history. This is just about white men. They're not talking about women. They're not, like, I was just incensed. And I was like, you need to do something about this, as if she didn't know. So I think that was probably the first time I understood that there was a narrative, like a scripted narrative around this country. But I think, and beyond that, there's just been a number of times.
Althea, you probably made your mother's day when you came home and said that.
Or she was just rolling her eyes like, here she goes again.
Okay, so Mary wanted to share the screen. Is there anything you wanted to say before we start sharing screen?
No, I just want to say thank you for having me and having Althea present. There is one other Black woman who works and is supporting our work, Dana Orr. She was not able, to come today. And before I share the screen and get into our little presentation, I think it's important to, well, just to say, I truly believe, I'm not the only one, that racism is a white people problem. And it's something that we have to solve. And with the last 3 years that we've been doing this kind of work, with that kind of thought in mind, we've had pushback. Okay, if this is white people work, how come you have Black women working with you or supporting you? And that is the pushback, because there are people, believe that. And so I'd like Althea, before I start, Althea, if you would, give why is it that you as a Black woman are working with white women?
Sure. I think there's been that pushback, and I've also heard the pushback that this should be led by Black women. So both, either Black women shouldn't be involved because it is the problem of white people, or it needs to be led by Black women. And I, when Mary first told me about it, she said, I have this vision that, we need to do like a long-term project with white, and I don't even think you finished your sentence. And I said, yes, because it's key that white women, I mean, you know, all women, but I recognize that her bend was towards white women need to understand their place in this, because and so when she said that, I said yes and amen, because I recognize that she has an audience that is different than what I have, that when I speak, there's a certain narrative about who I already am before I even say anything. And then as a white woman, she's going to have some credibility that I don't have. And I think be able to relate in ways, be able to put people at ease in ways that that I would not be able to. And so I think it's really crucial. I think the narrative in our country has been, oh, if there's something about people of color, let's outsource it during that time, whether it's a month, whether it's a topic, we'll have a speaker come in, we'll look towards, but it doesn't ever change anything. And I think that's because we've largely viewed it as it's their problem. It's the problem of people of color. It's ancillary to the American life, and it's really integral. And so, so I said yes and amen to this work, because the way it's set up is to challenge each woman with where she is, like really unearthing her foundation, which I think is really key. And so I support that, because what is really attractive is that this is saying, you white women, you have work you need to do. Like, not just to be nice, not to have dinner with your neighbors, not to be emotionally activated when something happens, not to admire a Black accomplishment or accomplishment of another person, but you have work to do. You are fundamentally part of the problem, unknowingly so in many cases, but yet you are. And so this is different than, let me teach you a little bit of something and you go back to your life. And so I absolutely wanted to support that. And yet I also recognized, I think that would be inadequate to do just with an all-white audience. It would be an echo chamber. And that's not to say that I'm all wise and knowing. I am not. And I certainly only bring one person's perspective. But it is to say that you don't know what you don't know. And I believe that people of color and women, right, like even all of us women, I think we're used to being bilingual. Like, we live in a world that is centered around men's power, and yet we as women are able to navigate that because there's always this awareness. Well, the same is true for me as a Black woman. I live in this world, and yet I also am not necessarily in this world and not only seen as this world. So there's this constant translating in my head, whether it's how I speak, how people see me, etc. And so white women are not going to know that. So the idea that there would be white women and women of color seemed integral. It would be inadequate either way.
Thank you for your work and for the amount of patience that it requires, endurance, persistence, all of the above.
Mhm.
Okay, Mary, do you want to start sharing the screen?
Yes, I will. Thank you. Thanks, Althea.
Sure, of course.
The information I just put into a quickie PowerPoint this morning, it's the same information that I had sent as a Word document to Pat. And so I don't know, Pat, if you disseminated it or not, but feel free.
Thank you.
The title is Facing Racism, One White Woman at a Time. We don't use this book, but it is a book that I purchased maybe a couple of months ago. Robin DiAngelo also has White Fragility, but this is her latest one, and it's how progressive white people perpetuate racial harm. That's us. That's white women. And we are progressive, or we think we are. And we perpetuate racial harm not knowingly. Well, if we do it knowingly, we have a real problem. However, I start out with this book because progressive white people perpetuate racial harm. We don't think that we do. And she's saying, yes, we do. Pat, you read some of this. Oh, that's fine. We don't consider ourselves racist. And I did say everything I've read weekend retreats, workshops, corporate diversity training. People are awakened. I mean, white people are awakened. And that's where we get this much aligned word, woke, that's now being used, batted around very negatively. But the question is, and the question that we ask the women is, are you really transformed and changed? And the answer that we get most of the time is no. Awakened, yeah, maybe we know a little more history than we did before. And maybe we do have a Black friend. Okay, that's nice. We found out that change takes a lot of time. If you've lived life, as I think we all have, we've gone through many changes. And but in order for a change to really lead to action takes a long time. And so that's what we came up with, that this particular program gives women 9 months. And we use 9 months because as women, 9 months is a good container. We understand 9 months. If we have had children, well, it took 9 months. Some of us have not had children. We still understand it takes 9 months, and then you do have a new birth. And so that was the idea behind the 9 months. Oh, sorry. The overview of the program, there are 18 sessions, so that's twice a month. We don't use the academic calendar. Academic calendar is also 9 months, but we don't use it because then, I mean, it's got the idea of being intellectual, and this is not an intellectual process. We start in June with a planning meeting and we end right about now. The end of March, beginning of April. That's springtime, and it's a time of new beginning. And it's a time of being awakened, yes, but also changed and transformed so that we're going to actually be able to do something that's meaningful. Each session's 90 minutes. There's 7 books. We started in 2019 with 8 women. In 2020, we had 2 groups of 8 women each. In 2021, we had 2 groups of 8 women each at a national group and a Milwaukee group. And the national group, that was really cool. Wisconsin, Michigan, Virginia, North Carolina, and Colorado. And so to get the insight from all of, the different perspectives and different states was very enlightening. I'm just going to go through this and then we can have a little, time for questions.
Sounds good.
Our books, this is the way we read them. Fire Next Time, James Baldwin. Between the World and Me, Ta-Nehisi Coates. Birth of a White Nation, Jennifer Badalora. Stamped from the Beginning, Ibram Kendi. I'm Still Here, Austin Channing Brown. Evicted, Matthew Desmond. Reconstructing the Gospel, Jonathan Wilson Hargrove. Oh, I spelled his name wrong. The process, each woman reads the book with what we call intentional reading or spiritual reading. In other words, what is the author saying to me personally? And then she writes down her thoughts. Each session includes a reading of what each woman wrote, not extemporaneous ideas and, oh, I thought of this and then I thought of that and then maybe we can think of this. No, we read what we wrote. Emotional writing, not intellectual. And it takes women a long time to get out of their heads and into hearts and into our guts. It's not a book club. Okay, whether you like the book or not, we don't care. You can throw the thing across the living room. What is it that the author said that hits me in my gut or hits me in my heart or hits me personally? And then we write down those thoughts. That's what we write down. After everybody reads, we don't have any crosstalk, it's called, or everybody just reads. And on Zoom, it's nice because we're all on mute. 2019, I had the group in my living room. But then came March 2020 and we had to be on Zoom, and we've been on Zoom ever since. After everybody reads what it is they've written, then we open it up for discussion. Some personal reflections. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but what she's saying here is that she really learned about systemic racism. Second paragraph, there's so much I never taught in school. That happens a lot. We've been told a lie. Our history books are not telling us the truth. And that's for white students who go through school, Black students, Hispanic students, Hmong students. Our history books do not teach what real American history is. And so, and this woman said here, a raw exploration into roots of racism. This is true right here, the raw explanation. She used a good word here because when we go through this program, about the 4th month, right around November, December, people are angry, they're frustrated, they're disturbed, they're disoriented, they don't feel good, their bodies ache, all kinds of different things are going to happen to us when I'm saying white women, when we find out that what we have been told and how we are living is doing harm to other people. And so when she used the word raw, that's why I put it in here, because when you go through, well, here, I'll stop this for a minute. When you go through a transformation, as we know, if you're really going to be transformed, you start out here, you want to end up over here, but you know what this is. You don't know what this is. But you go through a transformation in order to get here. Going through this transformation is rough. A divorce, that's rough. A death, that's rough. But then we get over here. And this is what we talk about a lot in these 9 months. This is a transformation. You are changing. If you don't want to change, well, then you just don't come back. And here's the thing, though, with every single woman that we've worked with, nobody quit. And the reason they didn't, one of the reasons they said they didn't quit is because they had a group. They didn't have to do it alone. And even on Zoom, and I know we've been doing Zoom forever, groups have really coalesced and congealed and bonded and come together in really wonderful ways. So that the 2019, 2020, and these new group 2021, they're all going to continue. They have all continued. And so it's something that is really revelatory, I think, about women, that we have the ability to do this, even though all we're doing is just looking at faces here. I'll stop here. Althea, do you want to say anything? Otherwise, we can have a little questions about this before I go into the second program. Althea and I, we really have 2 programs that sort of came out of the last 3 years. So the 9-month program with women, with white women, is the first program. So if you have any questions, or Althea, if you want to say anything. You're on mute, Althea.
Thank you. I was fussing at the animals earlier. I want to say that that in addition to all that Mary is saying, what I see as, I mean, I'm involved, but I'm not in all of the meetings. So
Oh,
I
yeah.
see it in snippets. So Miss Dana and I, we have, we call them chill sessions. These are times when all of the women get together along with us. And we're not discussing a book, we're talking about articles or other things, and just kind of combing through what people have been experiencing and having a cross-cultural connection you can see. So I see it in snippets in terms of the women. And what I see is that there is a lot of dismantling, and there is some undoing, and there is unearthing, which is really important and really difficult. But I also see there starts to be a snippet of like, oh, look, I see people starting to see, oh, there's beauty. Like the narrative has been negative or tropes or an exceptionalism or, sometimes what I see is that maybe people feel badly because they recognize there's racism, and it is almost not a pity, I don't think consciously, but that sense of like, we gotta let them overcome. And what I start to see is that women are like, oh, there's beauty and there's strength and there's brilliance and there's wholeness in people of color. And so that to me is really beautiful. It's not just the negative, but people start to see, yes, this is why I love being Black as an example, or, other people love, like, there is so much here that you're shielded from. So I think that's really important. And I think so, and also I think what's really key is that women who recognize there's an issue, but also recognize that common culture is really fraught with concerns, like, I don't want to say anything wrong, and like, what if I offend somebody, and like, I see how people get canceled. I see women, and they talk about that, start to learn language, like through this time, start to learn language on how to speak about things that are important regarding race and inequities and the disfavorment, et cetera, and disrespect. And so that's really key. Like in an ideal world, people aren't just awakened and aware and even go beyond, oh, yes, we have beautiful people in every culture, but also have language for how to address, for how to attract, for how to connect with people, and then also find their own strength. So it is both the dismantling, and there's also this sense of like, oh, there's strength on this other side. And admittedly, it's just the beginning, but it can be a beautiful beginning, or has been anyway, for the 40 women who thus far participated.
Mhm. Thank you. I forgot to mention, out of the 18 sessions, Ms. Dana and Althea come 4 times. So that'll help a little bit. Any questions on this before I go into the second program?
Just a follow-up question about what aftercare is provided. After the participants complete whatever is the time frame that they're allocated, do you have a support system, or do you have aftercare? And then my other question, are all of the participants white women?
Okay, thank you. I'll answer the second one first. Yes, all white women. And your first question, is there a follow-up? We don't have anything in place per se for follow-up. It has been talked about. What we do know for sure, all of the groups have continued every single month. So 2019 has been doing this for 3 years. 2020 for 2 years, and now 2021 just ended. And they said, yes, absolutely, we're going to continue. And I know this because there's a liaison in each group that sends me emails, so I know what's happening. And Althea and Ms. Dana and I, we attend when we can. In 2019, we attended every single one of their meetings for a year and a half. But once we I mean, when you got 5 groups, it was impossible. There aren't enough days in the week. And so, Gloria, that's a really good question. I mean, it's something that has come up, something that maybe we have to think about, Althea, you know, as
Yeah, I mean, I'd say it is a really good question. It's almost built in a sense. Well, I should say there's a component of support built in the sense that, like, what I hear women say is like, oh, I'm so glad I have this group because this is not happening in the rest of my life. And so there's almost this sense of like sisterhood, this sense of support. And when people, for example, in one of the groups that just ended, one of the women said, don't leave me, you know, to her sisters, because she's in a different situation. And they're like, no, we won't. And so there's the sense of how we're going through this journey, which is unique and maybe countercultural in many ways. And so that's one of the reasons that the women stay together. And also, I think because, you know, when you learn something and you get excited about it, even if it's difficult, you want to learn more. And particularly when you're immersed in it, you know, when you see, oh, we're swimming in water. I never knew about water. Water is everywhere. I want to talk about this water, and nobody else is aware of the water. So that's what's happening. They're immersed in this. And so in a sense, there's that built in, but we don't have anything in particular, like saying this is, you know, here's something external for that. We talk about self-care. I talk often when I'm with the women about balancing the need to stay in the game, that, you know, that to understand that for so many people of color, they have been at this for generations. And so while it can be like, oh my gosh, you know, you can be emotionally activated and feel like I want to join the fight, we also see that people are like worn out and exhausted and tired. And so I think it's really important to understand that there's a balance there. You should not burn yourself out, but also understand you're coming to the race late. And so you can't expect that everybody can just stop while you rest. Part of that is, how do I build resilience? How do I build tenacity so that I can care for myself really well and also continue to do the work that needs to be done? Because the more that do it, the more then it's less of a burden on everybody. So we talk about self-care, but we don't have anything particularly in place. But I think, you know, I mean, each group has said, no, I don't want to stop. And they continue to do the work, which I think thus far has been beautiful. But that's a really good question.
I see Mary has her hand up. Mary, do you want to unmute?
Yes, thank you. I like this idea of there being, you know, sort of building a group of people who you can connect with and share with. I'm wondering too about how, you know, to sort of keep the fire alive, but I'm wondering how the knowledge and consciousness that's gained in the groups, how people are carrying that outside of the groups, into their work, into their communities, into their relationships. And I suppose that's part of the component. It's, you know, one of the components of this training.
Yes. Yes, it is. And I can attest to the fact that, yes, they are taking this out of Zoom, out of this little group here, and they are taking it into their workplaces. There are retired women, but the majority, I'd say 60% are still in the workforce.
That's good.
And in fact, this past year, 2021, we have a 22-year-old. She's a senior at Madison and is going to be a teacher. So we do have young people, less than 30, and we also have people 60s and me 70s. So it's a real wide range, which is really nice because, I mean, her name was Mary, and to have her in the group was just wonderful. I mean, it's a whole different way of looking, you know, at life. She's got a different way of looking at life than I do. So it really, age-wise, generation-wise, gender, we're all women and we're all white, but age, gender, education, all of that is different.
There's
And
a one.
no, go ahead.
No, please continue. Sorry.
Oh, no, I'm done.
I did mean to, I thought you were done. There are one woman who started her own group. So she started her own group specifically with moms. So, which is wonderful to think about people raising children in a very mindful, intentional way. And then there's another woman out of this year who's going to start a group in her neighborhood. And then there are people who are business leaders and so are taking the work into their work. So it shows up in different ways.
Right. That was one of the goals that we had way in the beginning, is that people would start their own groups. And so 2 people now, and possibly a third will start her own group. I'd like to go into the second part. I'm watching the time here. And the second thing that we did, and this came out of like 2020 and 2021. And where am I here? Oh, here we go. Okay, the second thing that, second program that came out is Dismantling Racism. It's a workbook of introspection for white people. And this is what it looks like. That's the cover. The workbook is based on the 12 steps of AA, of Alcoholics Anonymous. I am a member of Al-Anon, have been a member of Al-Anon since 1984, I think, a long time. Al-Anon, the 12 steps really helped me to understand what was going on in my life. And I had this idea of why can't we use the 12 steps and race? I went online. This is not the first, or I'm not the first person that thought of this. You can go online. There are people, Black and white, who have rewritten the 12 steps. And they wrote them so that they had, something to do with race. We decided not to do that. We decided to keep the real wording of the 12 steps, because I believe that if it's not broke, you don't fix it. The 12 steps have been around since the 1930s. They have helped millions and millions and millions of people. And if you go online, you'll find out there are 34 different issues use the 12 steps. It's a path. It's a path of transformation. You start out in one spot, you get to another spot. How do you do it? Here's the path. So this is a quote right from the workbook. It's a well-known path of recovery for alcoholics. So why can't it be a path of healing racism for us, for white people? Using the workbook, you can do it by yourself. It has explanations of the step and how the step relates to race, and then it has questions. However, it's recommended that you work together in a group, and that has played itself out forever, because there are AA groups and there are Al-Anon groups for a reason. We published the book in September 2021, and well, you can buy it. Guess what?
I just ordered it. It's only $15.
Right. Okay, so, oh, wait a minute. I guess I did have one more. Just, I'm sorry, my fault here. Just as a little summary of the two, each program, they both have the same goal. You just have a different path of how to get there. we white people need to rid ourselves of our own racism before we can become anti-racist people in the world. So the 9-month program is one path, and it happens to be white women. Although we are thinking now semi-seriously about doing this for white men. The workbook then is another path, but it has the same goal. It's a journey. They're both journeys of transformation. They're just different paths of how to get there.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Althea. One thing I'm thinking as you were talking is sort of like 3 sentences: to nurture the spirit, engage the mind, and inspire action. And that's a slogan from my church. And it really rings true for people who are trying to make the world a better place and address injustice. What I've experienced, even in my beloved community, is when we've talked to facilitators about something, the term is a holy interruption. And it's where somebody starts on some hurtful comment and you cut them off. And you might say, I'm not okay with that, or this really bothers me to hear that. You're trying to be clear and kind, but where we say silence is violence, when people don't speak up, even though it's really annoying to hear something or even to hear ourselves make mistakes, we have to have the courage to do the holy interruption. We have to have the courage to own that something is going on in the group that is hurtful to people. And I know Jay English also spoke about that. He said, if you know people right now who come from Ukrainian background, please reach out to them. Not just one day, or it's like if your beloved dies, don't just call them once, but that self-care that Gloria was talking about, to continue to nurture the spirit when the person is going through it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yes, it does. And we are recruiting right now because we'll start another group or 2 if enough women, come forth. So Mary, Pat, I'd like you to, at some point send out my email,
I will.
If you are interested, email is the best way to get a hold of me. Because if you call, I don't have your number. I don't answer any numbers. I don't know who they are. So email is the best way. And yesterday I sent out 7 emails of people who are interested. And what I do is I set up a one-on-one Zoom with everybody. I send them out, some information. I'm talking about the 9-month program now. And I send out information, and then we have a one-on-one on Zoom, and so that they can ask questions, concerns. We just have we get to meet each other a little bit, and we'll start in June.
And I also just put your email, Mary D.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Gmail.com.
That's right. That's correct.
And I hope for people who can access the chat that you save some of these things. The Jay English one was also very helpful. And as Mary Sussman added the information about the following up, the Lead Cafe has challenged people to, what do you think, Mary? Has it been like 4 years that you've been working to share this wisdom?
Yes, we had the Lee Cafe will be 5 years old in September, but the book club grew out of some discussions we had early on. So we just passed our 4th anniversary for the book club. And in that time, we've read about, I would say about 25 books on racial equity. And that's been a journey too. And people have told me, you know, I never thought about this. I didn't understand this. So, you know, it is a powerful experience to hear from largely African-American writers, to get their take, their research that some of them have spent years and years doing on a variety of topics, which are connected to, you know, a broader, the broader issue of racial equity. So yeah, it's been interesting and eye-opening, and in some ways dispiriting, in other ways liberating. So it's, to me, it's been a good experience overall.
Mhm.
So we also have some presenters here, and I don't want to embarrass anyone or put you on the spot, but I'm never too shy to do that. I'm going to start with my friend Toshiba. Toshiba, do you want to comment about the whole effort in the early childhood field to be anti-bias, or anything else you want to say? I know you've been a strong voice at MATC. And Charlene, I'm going to be calling on you. And Liz, I'm going to be calling on you. Toshiba's working on unmute.
Oh, yeah, I was talking to myself. I was like, I don't know. I just downloaded Zoom on my iPad, so this is my first time actually using this forum. So sorry about that. Yeah, so thank you for all of the information that has been shared so far during the session by Mary and Althea. It's been very enlightening to hear about the work that you all are doing, the book club, and the population of individuals that you're serving. So it's specific to anti-bias work, or what I typically like to consider anti-racist work in the field of early education. It's an area that is near and dear to my heart, to try to make sure that, because I'm in a position to serve as an instructor to young professionals in the field, I take that opportunity to talk to them a lot about discriminatory practices, policies, and discourses that have a negative impact on Black and Brown children, even starting as early as the preschool years. We know that Black and Brown children, especially Black boys, are suspended and expelled from preschool environments at very high rates, which is very disheartening to me and should be disheartening to anyone who hear the statistics. So a lot of the work talk about, or kind of illuminate, the fact that a lot of teachers just work based on biases, like stereotypes, these historical stereotypes that have been embedded within the mindsets of individuals dating back to the era of slavery, that, you know, Black people in general are lazy. They don't want anything from the system. They're here to just milk the system and not to actually contribute to the system, which is really not true. I am a woman of color, and I spend a lot of time with other people of color, and that's just not the narrative that I see, you know, on a daily basis. It's a stereotype. And so we find that a lot of teachers, and the research that I've been doing, and the research of others, that they admit, like, oh yeah, well, I assume that Black children are going to misbehave. So that, because of that assumption, that stereotype that's embedded in their mindset, they then pay attention to Black children more, while all along white children are doing the same types of things. They're misbehaving in the same types of ways. Because as we know from my early education or child development background, children are children. It's not, children aren't different based on a racial background. We all have the intellectual capacity, right, from birth to thrive and to be successful. It has nothing to do with race or gender, ethnicity, all of these different social constructs that have been like thrown and embedded upon us to kind of differentiate us, or to kind of pit us against one another. So I talk a lot about these types of instances and issues in my classes at MATC, and also in the work that I do at UW-Milwaukee. Most recently, I was just hired on as a consultant for Wisconsin Early Childhood Association. And in that work, that whole, so I'm doing research for that organization, and I have to jump off because I have a meeting with them. And the whole title of that is Insuring and Projecting Equity in the ECE Workforce. So again, just trying to make sure that I'm doing my part at the student level in the way that I instruct, and the information and narratives that I share with my students at UWM and MATC, and also working with entities directly with the workforce to try to build a better workforce for individuals in the early education spectrum. So I don't know if I answered your question,
Yeah, you
Patricia.
did. Now we can only get
Okay.
paid better, right?
Yes, like the workforce is underpaid, disrespected. I think it's a slap in the face that we look at the statistics and the average salary or hourly wage for early educators is $11.25 an hour, which is poverty, right? So we're putting them through a system and we're setting them up to be poor, which is a cycle that just continues. And I think that's also very shameful for our society to do something like that. And we just have to do better all the way around. Black women, white women, Asian women, Hispanic women, Black, I mean, it doesn't matter. Men, women, whoever, we all just really need to do a better job at supporting our system, our society, and making it a better place to live and thrive for everyone involved.
Thank you, Toshiba.
You're welcome.
I'm watching to see who unmutes first. Would it be Charlene or would it be Liz?
Pat, I'm not sure what you wanted, and Toshiba, thank you so much for your incredible and amazing body of work and what you do. And oh my gosh, it's so incredibly important. I'll be looking out to, learn a lot more and hope that on one of our Lunch and Learns, you can share, you can sort of be the feature and share a little bit, more about what you do. But thank you so much for that. Pat, I'm not sure what specifically you wanted me to share. I'm just like, I just wanted to end on what Toshiba said. It was incredible.
You're another leader who inspires action, and I didn't know if
appreciate
you
that.
wanted to make a comment on that.
Yeah, I don't necessarily have, anything additional to add for those that don't know me. Charlene Moore with Urban Underground and Youth Justice Milwaukee. Currently, I work with high school age young people, and I'm actually pivoting to work more with older youth, 18 to 24. And again, all the things that, Toshiba said in regards to, we've, society has constructed how we deal with individuals, particularly individuals of color and women. And, until we learn, I think that's one of the main bodies of work, learn and then do something about that. Things are going to continue to change very slowly. And so, just my response to, being in this field is a big part of it is to educate and not only, provide that education, but provide the platform for individuals to say, okay, how can I change this? How can I be involved in not only changing myself, because that's where it starts first, starts at that inward, and then how do I work outward, even if it's just within the people that I can reach, my friends, my family. And so, that takes very intentional work. And I'm just glad to be a part of a space that, provides that sort of, platform for everybody to learn and grow, and for us to really, speak truth to power, to say, what, these are the issues, and not being afraid to call out, racism, or call out the issues that we're dealing with, and to really speak about it and to say, okay, how do we do better? So I'm really glad to be a part of this space, and I'll just end there. Liz, it's on you.
And
All
first
right.
of all, I want to say Liz is our newest board member for the League of Women Voters. So let's give her a round of applause for saying, yes, I'll do it.
Welcome.
All right. Mine is going to be short for me, and watch this transition. One of the speakers mentioned self-care. And as part of that self-care, one of the young ladies that I grew up with in Madison has turned me on to an exercise group that's being run through UW-Madison. And that starts at 1.
Oh, okay. I'm mindful.
All right. But I do want to say, Patricia, I'm so happy that you organized this. And also the format that's being used. And Patricia, you've probably heard me say this before. Sometimes as a Black woman, I get tired of teaching. And so it's nice to see, it's fantastic to see that others are getting involved. I am a book lover, part of Mary's League group. And when you listed the books that they were reading, I only wrote down those that I don't already own. So I was like, yes. And social justice is in my blood. And Patricia, I want to give you a different compliment. I'm giving you the compliment, but this session is going to help me in other areas of my life. I am also the mission president at my church. And for the past 6 months or so, I've been having someone in the church community do a presentation. This time it didn't work out because I supply the topic and supporting scripture. And without going into all of it, it was one of those situations where I was wrestling with God about the topic. And I finally decided I can't give this to this individual without more prep time. So, which all means I have to finish the agenda myself, which is tomorrow. But Patricia, to make my point, from your church, which I've been lucky enough to go to, you talked about nurturing the spirit, engaging the mind, and inspiring action. And that applies to everything we've discussed today. So I'm stealing those, and those will be part of my discussion
Oh, good.
tomorrow.
Oh,
I hope that we
please.
can have a part 2 to this to see how the group is going. And like you, I will be buying another book. Not that I have room in my house. And I'll see some of you Friday at book club.
Thanks, Liz.
Okay, bye-bye.
So we are aware of the time. This is now just like unmute yourself. It's the open mic. Just appreciation to Mary Delgado and Althea Washington. What a beautiful program. We really are grateful. And so if there's anyone who wants to unmute and make a comment, please, this is your time.
I'd really like to take a picture of the screen that had the names of the books. I tried to grab my camera. I saw Pat. Unless, Pat, you have it, you can just send it to me.
I will, Renee.
Okay, that's all. Thank you so much, as this has been so informative.
I thought it was,
Oh, great. Here it is again.
oh,
Mary, you're fast.
I thought also that the topic really is so timely, particularly after seeing most recently with Judge Brown Jackson.
Woohoo!
Racism is alive and well. It really was such a timely topic. And I also would love to have a copy of the book list.
I'll
If
send it to you,
you
Gloria.
could just send it to me, that would be fine. But thank both Mary and Althea. Excellent job. And keep up the great work.
Mary Celeste,
Unmute.
thank you.
You're going to post this. So if I can just say real quick to anyone who's considering joining, that I think about it in 2 ways. One, we saw in 2020 as the whole world watched Brother Floyd's life be pressed from his body, and the whole world, it felt like, was emotionally activated. And we saw after that you couldn't get a book written by a Black author. They were sold out, that there were book clubs and there were conversations and there were prayers. And today we are in 2022 and the issue is not done. And yet largely, certainly media, et cetera, has moved on overall. I mean, we saw a spike in February, but I know that there are people thinking that wasn't quite enough. That I know, even though it seems like in so many ways there are different focus and things have gone back to the way things were, I don't quite know what to do. This group is an invitation to join some like-minded women on an adventure to relearn a more holistic, beautiful way of living. It does mean dismantling it, but it means dismantling what shouldn't be there with other people in a safe environment that is challenging, but good. And so there's just an invitation to be a part of something like that. So if you're thinking, I don't know what, if you have an inkling that there's something there, we invite you on the journey.
I'm joining.
Wonderful.
Anybody else want to comment before we close out our meeting?
I would just like to say thank you to Mary for turning your chemo experience into a gift for the community. That's an amazing transition right there, and for all your work. And to Althea, thank you for your thoughts and the way you expressed your thoughts.
Mhm.
You're very positive and moving in how you express what's meaningful to you. And I was really affected by that.
Thank you.
I do want to publicly thank Althea and Miss Dana. This is a white people problem.
Yep.
But we could not be, we would not be where we are today if we did not have the two women with us. We wouldn't.
Sure, and
So,
authenticity,
thank you.
the work you're doing. Well, I think I see no more evidence of unmuting. Please know how grateful we are. And this is recorded, and people come back time and time again and look at what we have posted on the League of Women Voters. And if you haven't joined the League, I would like to invite you to join the League.
Mhm.
We're doing our work. We're doing our
Mhm.
work, and we have a $5 open door option. So I would say I'm happy to see a bunch of people continue to want to learn, and I'm in the group of learners. Thank you so much. Stay strong, my dear sisters.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gloria, we'll see you next month.
Thank you. Look forward to it.